now the Vondel Park. This is the largest city park in Amsterdam. One end to the other is about a mile the whole way through here. Now the park's named after a 17th century Dutch playwright and poet. Vondel was a contemporary of Rembrandt, and in fact, considering how they were both pretty successful, but in the end, Rembrandt really died quite poor, while Vondel was really quite revered during his time. Rembrandt kind of cursed to have his paintings sell for millions, hundreds of years after his death, never really got to cash in and enjoy it a lot during his lifetime. But Vondel was extremely successful in that. Vondel Park tomorrow serves as a child-friendly part of the city for Queen's Day herself, so you got, you know, nice little Ferris wheels and merry-go-rounds and stuff like that in here.
Still have beer.
Yeah, oh, you see, beer for the parents, you know, because they got to deal with the kids. So as long as there are children, there will be beer. I'm pretty convinced of that. Now, the park itself is about 2.5 meters beneath sea level and sinking a little bit more every single year. Okay, all the entrances in the park, notice how it kind of slopes downhill. As we came into the park, we sloped downhill. This is the one spot in town that doesn't have foundations underneath it. So all the buildings around the edges here, these were only put in a little more than 100 years ago, okay? Late 1890s, this was still outside of the city walls and what have you. So as the buildings got put around the edges, they all got foundations. They stay where they are. But then as the park is created, you drain some of the swampy bogland that was here to create this, and then what happens to the land over the years as it begins to dry out, the same thing that happens to a sponge when it begins to dry out. It begins to shrink and drop down even lower, so it becomes more susceptible to flooding than it would be in its natural state. So in response to that, they've been renovating the park for like the past 8 months or so. They say it's going to take until next February. So you see a lot of the park that's been ripped up. They've been resodding, putting in new layers of gravel and sand underneath, elevating it, changing the drainage and what have you through here. In the end, it will then look like this area does right now, which is nice and picturesque and very cool to see. We'll see areas up over here that all you can think of is to make a nice mud bath when it rains. Calamities that would befall Amsterdam, forcing the locals to get down on their knees and pray to St. Andrew for deliverance. Now those calamities would be the previously mentioned flooding. As I said before at the beginning, Amsterdam's last flood to hit here was 1917, but obviously being open to the sea and the tides and beneath sea level and a lot of rain, flooding's a constant dilemma throughout this city and really the entire nation. Another cause was from deliverance from fire, because prior to the mid-1500s, all the buildings in town were made of wood. So the town would basically burn down, you know, once every couple of generations. There were like 3 or 4 fires from in the 14 and early 1500s. The last one wiping out the warehouse district, and the goods inside the buildings were worth several times the amount of the buildings themselves. So in response to that, zoning officials, city council members, business leaders got together. Nowadays then, you've only got less than a dozen wooden houses in town. Everything else is brick and slate rooftops and what have you. And your third cross would be deliverance from the plague. Because this being a port town, sailors, rats, little bugs on the rats, spreading death and disease. The city was decimated by the plague several times throughout its history. So that's what your triple cross is all about. Deliverance from fire, flood, and disease. Church also. These people have reserved these areas, and so tomorrow they'll all come out at like 7 or 8 in the morning. Everything they don't want in their apartment goes on sale. It's the biggest rummage sale you've ever seen in your entire life. And you start looking around and you realize these squares are freaking everywhere. Okay, so everything is up for sale tomorrow. I could probably rent out my box bike for a lot of money. There are places in town, you've seen those bikes that got the big boxes on the front, some holding kids and stuff. Some of these things get freaking huge and they're the size of like a double bed. I've used them to pull like, you know, help bands move from like the practice space to the gig itself. Those things are reserved like a year in advance. And you take those to the south side of the city where some of the richer homes are located, and that's where people clean up. It's like, here's your, 2,000-year-old leather couch, 100 euros, take it away, thank you very much. So you can really score some major deals. So if you're looking to pick up like good secondhand stuff, it's the best flea market in the world tomorrow. So I think you'll enjoy that quite a bit. And a random wandering through this neighborhood would definitely not treat you poorly at all. That's what we're going to do now, actually. We're going to make our way around the gentleman dropping off the portable urinals. You want to get a photo of these for me. These are set up because we're too freaking stupid to live. Per year, they were pulling like 30 bodies. Per year, they were pulling like 30 bodies out of the canals, and they were all guys with their fly down. We got drunk, we pissed in the canal, we fell in, we drowned, we're dead. We're too stupid to live. So to make sure that won't happen, they set these urinals up all around the city. Now you are allowed to take marijuana from one coffee shop to the other and smoke it there. There's no rule that says you have to buy grass in every single place you go into. Although I do hear the occasional horror story about someone from out of town who stops into a coffee shop, asks for a coffee, pulls out their own grass, and the guy's like, no, you have to buy it here. That's not the law at all. That's just an idiot behind the counter, okay? So you don't have to buy it in every place you go into, because if you do that, you visit half a dozen places, you get all these bags of marijuana left over, and you're leaving town, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this stuff? We are at Kirkstraat number 134, okay? Write egg on it, slide it through the mail slot, and I will make sure everything is properly incinerated, okay? I will take care of that for you. I will hump that road, not a problem at all. Now, smoking in public, always remember, tolerance doesn't mean the locals like it. It is tolerated. So we are obliged to exercise common courtesy and good judgment when smoking throughout the city. So clearly, you can sit outside at a coffee shop and have a smoke, no problems. Can't sit outside at a bar or a restaurant and have a smoke, okay? So you want to keep that in mind. Obviously, you can kick back on a lot of the benches that are around on the canals and have a puff. But if there's already families and stuff out there, that's a definite no-no. And there are neighborhoods throughout the city, mostly closer to high schools, where they got tired.